Hey, it's Dr. Shantae, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Show of hands, how many of you have waited until the last minute to do something that you knew was important, but you just couldn't make yourself start? The deadline was looming, time was running out, and yet you dragged your feet until you either missed the deadline completely or just barely made it. It's a common practice called procrastination. Well, in today's video, I'm going to show you the one hack that finally freed me from chronic procrastination. Keep watching. Procrastination is probably the most common form of self-sabotage. It's so common, and it doesn't matter how educated you are, it doesn't matter how logical you are. It's one of those things that can absolutely defy logic and keep us trapped in this cycle of underperforming. But the question is, why? Why do we do it? There's so many reasons, but here are some of the most common ones. Number one, anxiety and overwhelm. Sometimes the thought of doing something, taking on a certain task, is just daunting, either because it's a massive task, or we start to doubt our capabilities, or it seems like it's going to take too long or require more skills or capacity than we feel like we have in the moment. Thinking about the totality of all that we have to do, or all that we have to accomplish, or all that it's going to require in order to get it done can stop us dead in our tracks. Another reason for procrastination is it can be a trauma trigger. So for some people, you are the fixer in the family. You are the person who has to take care of everybody. You're the person who fields all the crises and the phone calls, and can you do this? And can you do that? And sometimes just the thought of having to do one more thing triggers a feeling of neglect. Why does nobody ever do this for me? Why am I always taking care of things and nobody is ever taking care of things for me? And so sometimes our procrastination is a result of just freezing, because it's like, wouldn't it be nice if somebody else was the fixer? Wouldn't it be nice if somebody else could come to the rescue? And so for some people, procrastination is a trauma trigger. It reminds them of a time where they were neglected, or reminds them of the very real day-to-day circumstances where they have to do everything for everybody and they don't have that kind of reciprocal support where people are doing things for them. And then one of the more common reasons why people procrastinate is because it's just hard to start. Sometimes we can get so caught up in our heads and we can think it through. We can think through all the steps and we know how to do it, but it's just about doing it, actually pulling the trigger and actually getting started. So some of us don't get stuck in the process. Some of us get stuck before the process and actually getting it going. And that's the part that I want to address. That was the hard part for me. It was the actual getting started. I knew how to do it. I knew what I was supposed to do. I knew how long it was going to take. I knew I had the capacity and the resources, but I just could not make myself disrupt the flow of all the other things that I was doing. Plus, let's be honest, usually when there's a task that we have to do that is urgent or important, aren't there so many other appealing options? There are so many more appealing alternatives to doing that thing that we don't want to do. And so once I figured out this hack for getting started, everything changed. Believe it or not, my hack for overcoming procrastination is as simple as a timer. Now, there's something called a Pomodoro timer. It looks like this, at least the one that I have. It looks like this. So can you see this? And it's basically this multi-sided timer. It has a button at the top, and I can set it from 1 minute to 3 minutes, to 5 minutes, 10 minutes, all the way up to a whole hour. And you might think, well, that's simple. Anybody can do that. I have a timer on my phone. No, I don't recommend the phone, because if you are a procrastinator and a chronic procrastinator at that, you know as well as I do, as soon as you pick up your phone, you have lost 15 minutes, 20 minutes, a whole hour down scrolling, texting, checking emails, going on the internet. Before you realize it, you are down a whole rabbit hole of YouTube videos or TikToks, and you look up and you're like, oh man, I blew my time. So that's why I don't recommend setting the timer on the phone. But a Pomodoro timer, what I like about this is that the increments are so small. And so if you are struggling to start something, set a timer for 1 minute and say, okay, I'm going to start this. I'm going to do it for 1 minute. And then before you know it, the timer's going off and you're like, okay, well, I just got started. I kind of got into a groove. Let me do 3 minutes. Set the timer for 3 minutes. And then 3 minutes later, you're in a groove. The beauty of this is that once you start, you have already psychologically committed to the task. Once you start, you are already starting to build momentum. And if it's hard for you to build that momentum, you can start with as little as 1 minute at a time, as little as 3 minutes at a time, as little as 5 minutes, and work your way up to 10-minute, 15-minute, 20-minute increments. And then when the beeper beeps and the timer goes off, there is a feeling of satisfaction and accomplishment because even though you didn't finish it, you knew that you started it. And once you have already psychologically built up the capacity to start, it's much easier to come back and finish. And for the record, you don't have to get a fancy Pomodoro timer. You can get an egg timer or some other device that is not your cell phone that will allow you to incrementally start a project in very small increments of time. Once you have started the process, the rest of it kind of takes care of itself. So if you have ever experienced procrastination, if you are a chronic procrastinator, I would love for you to hop into the comments and let me know, what are you experiencing when you procrastinate? What's going through your mind? What are your feelings? Is it anxiety? Is it overwhelmed? Is it a trigger? Or is it something else? And for those of you who have beat procrastination, I would love to hear your tips for how you have overcome that habit, because it would help me and it certainly would help people that watch this video know what are your tips and tricks for overcoming procrastination. I hope you guys found this content helpful. And if you did, you know that you can always like, subscribe, share this content, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time.